Welcome to the Swimming from Home talk show. I'm here with Greg Meehan. To start out with, can you kind of just give a synopsis of how you felt about the Pac12 Championships, and then kind of those next couple weeks after that? You know, what was that like for you and the team?
Sure. Yeah, Pac-12s I thought were pretty indicative of kind of how our season was progressing. You know, we were never usually very good in the fall, and that's just kind of our shtick. We're just, I think because we start school later, we, don't really focus much on speed in the fall. So we're just kind of training.
Mhm.
And that usually doesn't lend itself to very fast performances in the fall, and we're okay with that. But felt as though we had really sort of started to progress well through our Pac-12 dual meets. It's just kind of, we have the same schedule every year, and it's just such a well-known process, both for us as coaches, but then also for our athletes. And so, as we got to Pac-12s, we weren't very good the first night. 800 free relay and 400 medley relay, I thought we were a little flat. We were still pretty flat Thursday morning, Thursday night. Friday morning kind of started getting rolling, and then Friday night, Saturday morning, and Saturday night, I thought we were awesome. And, that I think just kind of goes to show that we were preparing for the next thing. For the small handful that was ready to go, I thought they performed really well. But we had a group of, 12 to 14 that had either posted times already, or we felt would post a time that would hold up just by throwing on a racing suit. Cause that's also something we don't do very much. And so, just kind of, that was a pretty good sign of where we were and where we were headed. And so, we walked away from Pac-12s feeling really good about what was coming up in a couple of weeks. And, just kind of look at some of our results over the last few years. We have definitely been a team that's gotten better from conference meet to NCAAs.
Yeah.
So, that obviously kind of halted quickly. You could see it coming, right? Like that Tuesday, it's like, oh man, we're probably in a situation where they're still going to have the meet, but there's probably not going to be any spectators. To, I'm not sure if they're going to have the meet, to, we're definitely not having the meet. And, and then that official word came down on Thursday. And for us out here, that was early enough where it was prior to our afternoon practice. So we had a team meeting that afternoon with our full squad, and for a couple that had left already, because at that point they had put classes online, and we had a couple that were that hadn't made the meet, so they were going to go home and then fly out to Athens to be there to watch our team. So they kind of FaceTimed in, but we had everybody there for that meeting, and much the same, I'm sure, as everybody else. It was a really hard day. Probably the most intense meeting I've ever been a part of. And that intenseness coming from, the emotion and the sadness for our team not to kind of finish what they started. And more specifically for our seniors, as the other seniors across the country, that's a hard thing to process as a 21, 22-year-old. So, that was kind of like how that whole little stretch transpired until that Thursday when we canceled the meet, or the meet was canceled.
Yeah. Have you, as a 40-something-year-old man, been able to process that?
One, I appreciate you, Coleman, for saying 40-something, so that was good. You took a little bit of a guess. You were a little hesitant, but I appreciate you for going there.
Definitely.
It was hard. Yeah, it was hard to process for our staff. Much the same as our team. Like we pour ourselves into this process, and I think what made that meeting so emotional is, these people are people that you spend a lot of time with, and especially as a women's only program, we've got 21 people plus our pros that we spend every day with, and you love them, and they're an extension of your family. And so to see them in such a state of sadness is hard, just to kind of see them hurting that much. And so it makes it more difficult, I think, to process even as an adult. And, for us as coaches, there will be, hopefully, there will be future Pac-12 meets and future NCAA championships and certainly future Olympic trials and Olympic games. But, for that group, that was the last opportunity for that special group to compete. And I think that's the hardest part, to kind of not see that all the way through, and not have our seniors kind of finish what they started here 4 years ago, which has been a pretty impressive run.
Yeah, no doubt. So I guess moving forward, is anyone on the team able to swim right now?
No, everybody's, all our college kids are home, or at other people's homes. They, once the meet was canceled that Thursday, I would say by Sunday, most everybody was gone. We had a small group that was still here, and that was the group that was going to head out to Colorado Springs after the NCAA championships. So they were kind of waiting around to see what was going to happen, because at that point we thought maybe we'd still be able to go to the Springs. And then that kind of fell through. And so we did a couple of local pools, because at that point Stanford had closed. We were one of the earlier facilities for sure to close. And so it was the right time for people just to go home and be with family, to make sure that they're prioritizing health. And and they've been home since. And I don't think that anybody out there has access to a pool. Most are just kind of doing hikes and walks and trying to do some dry land in their house, as are their coaches. So I think I've done more sit-ups and crunches in the last 10 days than I've done in the last 10 years. So just trying to fill some time,
Right. Yeah. So what is your day-to-day looking like now as a head coach, as a parent? I know you're the chef for the family.
Yeah.
How is your role? How have your roles shifted?
It's been different. We're trying to keep the kids. So our oldest is 15, our youngest is 12. We're trying to keep them on some kind of a schedule, as most parents are. Their school isn't doing any online stuff. So they just have assignments that they have to work on. So my wife put together a little schedule of like, okay, from here to here, you're going to do schoolwork, and then you're going to do some kind of workout, either like through, an app, or we'll go outside, and my oldest plays baseball and the youngest is doing some football and stuff. So we're just kind of throwing the ball around, trying to stay active. But it's a lot of killing time. And then they've got the rest of their day. So then they kind of hunker down in the room and they play video games, as teenage boys are prone to do.
Yeah.
But for us, it's a lot of hunkering down. We did go to the store today. That was kind of a big road trip, because we needed some stuff. But we're just trying to, do what we can to follow protocols of the community, and, just sort of ride out the storm.
Yeah. Do you have contact with the college students, with the post grads? Are you coaching in any capacity still?
No, from a college perspective, we're just trying to get onto Zoom, or we have a group meet chat, but then we had our first Zoom call on Sunday, and it was great just to see their faces, and with all of the staff, from our director of ops through our volunteer, and Tracy and I, and our sports performance coach. And so it was fun just to kind of do that. And we have set up a weekly call now. So we're going to do it every Sunday, which is a great way to kind of catch up and hear how everybody's doing. Ella has been down in Southern California for the last 10 days. She's been down there. And then Katie and Simone are still here in town. There's some in a little backyard pool, just trying to do what they can to kind of have the water be therapeutic, really, in a lot of ways. Not really training per se, but it's been good for them to kind of have a little something in their schedule, and they're able to do that because it's a backyard pool. They're able to do that with kind of checking all the boxes for social distance and all that stuff. So we'll see how long that holds up. We're going to take a break here at some point, just trying to get a little sense of what the big picture plan is, like what the new schedule is from the IOC. And then from that, then we'll start to kind of plan out more of an extended break, because I think it'd be real hard. Even if facilities open back up tomorrow, you wouldn't go from now through next summer without taking some kind of break, or we wouldn't. I think that's, for us, I think that kind of reset is important. So we're just trying to figure out when that is. And once we get word from the IOC and then USA Swimming Steering Committee can kind of map out the schedule for trials and everything else, then as coaches, we'll take a step back and have conversations with our pros and our undergrads, just on like, okay, here's what it looks like. This is how we're going to go about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've seen your office with the 4-year calendars. You have your plan completely mapped out. And I'm sure a lot of coaches do, especially ones in your position who have postgraduates who are Olympic hopefuls. How do you think, and I know you just said, obviously the IOC hasn't given details yet on when trials are going to be, when the Olympics are going to be, but how do you foresee kind of plans changing, because a 4-year plan is, this kind of throws a wrench in everyone's, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Somebody had asked, Karen Krause, I think it was from the New York Times, was asking about like, what is a positive thing that you can kind of learn from this experience? I don't know if there's too many positives, but we're going to have to really adopt here to a new plan and be flexible in terms of what we're, kind of what has been so historically like mapped out. We've got to be able to adjust from that and come up with something new in a shorter period of time. So I just think the biggest domino to fall is really just going to be the schedule. Once that is set for the games and trials and pro swim meets and US Open and our college season and all that stuff, then it's going to be a little bit easier just to, okay, I can kind of map that out. And I don't think it's as simple as you just hit repeat on this past year. I think this last year had a plan, right? With it ending in August, hopefully, with the Olympic Games. But I think the opportunity to have a little bit longer runway into next year might change that a little bit. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking about and looking into. It's just like, we always have a little bit of a break in August, and we kind of start the progression towards the summer at the very end of August, beginning of September. And now, like, we may start that progression July 1, we may be 6 weeks longer, if things calm down. So it's just, having some multiple things in play and then just going with the flow of what is recommended from, the WHO and CDC and certainly the administration.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the writing was on the wall for the Olympic postponement for quite a while. But did you, as a head coach of the women's Olympic team, did you have an initial reaction to that, or do you have an opinion on that?
For sure, I have been really supportive of the postponement, and I say that with all sensitivity, right? Because one, there's a much larger thing going on outside of sports. And so our comments are very sort of focused and myopic on athletics. But I think as you take a step back, we're all understanding there's a much larger global crisis going on. And the numbers are certainly showing that here in the States, and that things aren't trending in a good direction. But it was pretty amazing to sort of watch the anxiety and stress of our athletes as the uncertainty grew, the stress levels and anxiety grows. And to think about a 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe longer week process of uncertainty is not healthy. And that's as much where some of that was coming from for me personally as anything else, was just the idea of we need some clarity to help sort of ease everybody's angst. And so I was definitely in favor of the letter that Tim Hinchey sent to the USOPC. I applaud him for his leadership and taking a strong stance and staying on mission. And so I'm very supportive of that. At the same time, I'm also sensitive to the fact that, you know, there are athletes that are nearing the end of their careers, and this postponement is going to affect them more than maybe an 18-year-old. And you know, that whether or not they're going to continue to press forward for another year and stay in the sport. And I certainly hope they do, but I don't, you know, I think it's important that we also are sensitive to that in understanding that this is hard for some, or harder for some than it is for others. You know, even for us, as we kind of have our plan and you know, our pros and our Olympic hopefuls have kind of been on this path. I can take a step back and say, regardless of how good they were going to swim in the summer, which I felt confident about how they were doing, I know they're going to be better a year from now. But I think there's some other challenges in place for some of our athletes that were nearing the end of their careers. And so, you know, I think we're all empathetic to that, and certainly hope that they can kind of take a small break and get back to it and continue to make Team USA better.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, so have given all this time alone, or sorry, time at home.
Yes.
You're not alone.
I'm alone right now, which is great.
Yeah. Have you had time to kind of reflect personally on maybe, you know, either looking back or moving forward, just kind of, you know, we've all gotten a lot of time, like you said, it's just killing time. And
Yeah.
have you gotten an opportunity to take some positives away from this, just you as a person, not necessarily you as a coach?
You know, certainly, I mean, my world has absolutely flipped on its head in this last little stretch. I was set to leave for NCAAs on whatever that Sunday was, March 15th.
Yeah.
And was not going to return home until after the Mission Viejo Pro Swim meet. So it's about 5 weeks door to door. And now I'm probably home for 5 weeks. Right. So that is a positive for sure. And that, you know, that kind of trip is a bit of an anomaly. You haven't quite done a trip that long before. And, you know, my family was going to come out to NCAAs, and then they were going to come out to Colorado Springs for a couple of days in the middle of the camp. So it wasn't going to be 5 weeks without seeing my family, but it was going to be 5 weeks away from home, and it was going to be a lot of time without them. And this is, you know, I think part of the thing that maybe folks don't see about the sacrifices that, not that the coaches make, but that the families of the coaches make in helping support our athletes. And so I went from that to being hunkered down for 5 weeks, and it's been really nice getting to spend more time with the kids and with Tess. You know, it's a lot of watching TV and playing card games or board games with the four of us. Or like I said earlier, just even, you know, one of the things I've really enjoyed as a parent is just like having catch with the kids. And so it's been harder and harder to have catch because my 15-year-old's a lot older and stronger now. But it's still been fun to do that. So that's kind of one of the things that for sure I'm going to be, in all of this sadness, I am going to appreciate that part. And that's time that you can never replace. And so I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Any closing thoughts you have?
No, I just, you know, for all the swimmers out there that are nervous or uncertain about the future, even though this is now, you know, the IOC statement at least has come out, and that the games are going to be postponed. And I think it's time to take a break and similarly enjoy time with family and friends at 6 feet apart. And, you know, just really minimizing risk and prioritizing you know, the time that you can spend with your family. So I think if we can all, you know, get better through that, then that'll be one thing that will come out of this stronger. So thanks for having me on, Coleman. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Greg. I appreciate you giving the time.